Hi everyone, this is Miss Marinette. Today we're going to be practicing factoring out the greatest common factor. So when we do this, it's going to be best to use our calculator, and we're going to use our test taking strategies. So question number 1 says, which of the following is a factored form of 40x minus 16 using the GCF? So GCF again is the greatest common factor, which means we want it to be the biggest number. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the biggest numbers, 8, and we're going to see if 8 goes into 40 and 16. So how we do that is we go to our calculator, and we're just going to do 40 divided by 8. If we get a whole number, like 5, that means it works perfect. Okay, then I take 16, I divide it by 8. I get another whole number, which means we're going to use either B or D. Okay, now when I divided 40 by 8, I did get 5. When I divided 16 by 8, I got 2. So therefore, my answer is going to be answer choice B. Okay, looking at number 2, which of the following is a factored form of 12x squared plus 24x using the GCF? Okay, if I notice, I have an x squared and an x. Both terms have an x, so I should be factoring out an x as well, which means I can cancel out answer choice A and answer choice D because it does not have an x on the outside with the GCF. Okay, so now when I look at it, I need to see what number goes into 12 and 24 evenly, and it's the biggest number. I have an option of 6 and 12, so I'm going to check 12 out. We should know that 12 goes into 12, but if we don't, we can always type it in. 12 divided by 12 is 1. And then we had 24 divided by 12, and we get 2, which means 12 works for both of them, so that is going to be my answer. Okay, and if I look at it, the x, if I take out one x from each term, I would be left with just an x and just a number. And you can always check your work by distributing it back out. 12x times x would be 12x squared, and 12x times 2 would be that positive 24x, and that's what we started with, so that's how we know it works. Okay, which of the following is a factored form of 2x cubed plus 14x squared plus 28x? Again, each term has an x, so I should be factoring out at least one x, which allows me to eliminate A because it's just factoring out a 2, and B because it's just factoring out the number 14. So those two, so now we have a 50-50 chance. Okay, if I look at each of my terms, C is saying that the only thing they have in common is 1, and D is saying that they have 2. Well, 2 is divisible by 2, and 14 is divisible by 2, and 28, which leaves us with this as our final answer. Again, you can always check by distributing. 2x times x squared would be 2x cubed, which is the first term. 2x times 7x gives me a 14x squared. And 2x times 14 gives me 28x, which is what we started with, so that's how we know it does work. Okay, looking at number 4, which of the following is a factored form of 16x minus 24x squared? Again, both terms have an x, so our answer, the factored form, should have an x, which it looks like all of them do. Okay, we want to start by looking at the biggest factor, so we're going to look at 16 to see if 16 goes into 16 and 24. Okay, so when we do that, we get 16 divided by 16, we get 1. When I do 24 divided by 16, notice I get a fraction, so that means that does not work. So that's eliminated. So now I'm going to check the next biggest one, which is going to be 8. So I'm going to do 16 divided by 8. I get 2, and 24 divided by 8, I get 3, which tells me that one does work, and that would be my GCF. Again, I can always check myself. 8x times 2 is 16x. 8x times a negative 3x is a negative 24x squared. That matches what we had up here, so it works out. Okay, then we have 2 Starlight questions to try out. So let's look at this first one. I'm going to zoom in. So which expression is equivalent to 210d squared minus 63d. Okay, again, equivalent just means equal to. So I'm going to, if I notice I have d in both equations, which means I can eliminate h and j because they do not have a d as the GCF. Okay, and then the only thing that seems to change is the sign right here. Well, if I notice right now, it's a minus sign, and I did not factor out a negative number to change the sign, which tells me the correct answer has to be F. Okay, because of the minus sign. Looking at the next one, which expression is equivalent to negative 28x squared plus 35x? Again, both terms have an x, which means my GCF should both have an x with it, and it looks like all of them do. Now, when your leading coefficient, so that first number right here is negative, right there, we need to factor out a negative number, which allows me to eliminate answer choice H and answer choice F. Okay, so that's a special rule you have to remember. When there's a negative in front, you got to factor out a negative number. Now, when I factor out that negative number, the signs are both going to change. This is going to change to a positive, and this is going to change to a negative. So I'm looking for a positive first term, okay, which 4x and 4x, they're both positive, but the second term needs to be a negative or minus sign, which tells me that my answer is G. Okay, so I hope this helps with GCF. If you have any questions, please make sure you ask your teacher.